Hi, everybody. Welcome to Obscure Animation and this show where every month we like to talk about a indie or lesser known animated film and see what we think about it. It's a lot of fun. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford is here.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. How are you?
Hey, all is well. Thank you. Excited to
Yeah.
talk with you about kind of this random
Yes.
movie.
It is very random. Very Ralph Bakshi we're talking about. We're talking about wizards today. And why don't you tell everybody kind of why you ended up watching this?
Well, so every year, Rachel, I like to, as you know, I like to have some kind of a movie watching project, and whether it's a genre or a movie star, or something,
Hmm.
I try to do a deep dive. And so this year, I decided to do a deep dive with the 20th Century Fox movie studio. Since Disney bought Fox in 2019, or got finalized in 2019, I just thought it'd be interesting to do a history of when Fox first formed in 1935 to when they were purchased by 2019. So I did a lot of homework and I picked 100 films that I thought were representative of the studio, and it runs a wide variety of genres and you know directors and styles and movie stars,
Hmm.
etc., that reflect the history of the studio, and then also just the time period that these films were made and released. And so in this, and I've been doing it chronologically, so I'm right now in the latter half of the 1970s. And I had heard of Ralph Bakshi before, and I think it was mostly hearing about Fritz the Cat, which I don't think I've ever seen.
No.
Maybe I would remember it if I had seen it, but it was. I just remember it was very controversial because it
Yeah.
was like the first
NC-17, I think.
X-rated or NC-17,
Yeah.
yeah. But back in the day, I believe they referred to it as X-rating
Hmm.
of an animated film, and that just blew my mind because I'm like, wait a minute, I mean, I'm just this little kid, but I'm like, aren't animated films like Disney is Snow White, The Seven Dwarfs, Peter
Hmm.
Pan, and all these ones that I love. But then as an adult, I've watched his Tolkien,
Hmm.
his Lord of the Rings adaptation, and I think it was called Cool World.
Oh yeah, that I heard. I mean, it was considered one of the worst movies of the year when it came out. I'd never
Yeah,
seen it, but I know it does have kind of a cult following.
yeah.
A lot of his
So
movies.
I think I saw that in the theater
Oh,
actually.
really?
And anyway, but this movie called Wizards popped up as I was looking again at films from 20th Century Fox, and I'd never heard of it.
Hmm.
And so I did some research, and sure enough, I mean, Bakshi, produced it. Actually, he wrote, directed, and produced it, but Fox released it, and I just thought, well, I'm adding this to the list. And then when
Hmm.
I came to it, I just, you were nice to humor me. I just said,
Yeah,
asked if you wanted to maybe talk about this for obscure animation, just because again, I never heard of it
yeah.
before.
I love that you do this project because I think it's good to get out of our comfort zone and to watch things that you wouldn't normally watch. And I think
Yeah.
that that's the benefit of doing these kinds of projects is and hopefully you find stuff that you wouldn't have normally watched. Like when what was the one that we in our 1989 ranking, the hospital,
Oh,
the
yeah.
medical student.
Gross Anatomy.
Yeah, Gross Anatomy. It was so good.
We never would
And
have. I never
yeah,
would have watched that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the joy of kind of these projects, both really
absolutely.
watching ones that like you did Sound of Music and things like the ones that you love, you love, and then also then going back and finding ones that you haven't heard of like this.
Yeah, they're obscure, and so yeah, so it's fun to pick movies that clearly were important to the studio, like like you
Mhm.
mentioned, The Sound of Music. It's almost like you couldn't not watch that one if you're going, talking about a history of 20th Century Fox.
Mhm.
But yeah, but then just the little obscure ones like this one,
Yeah.
that I agree with you. I've been learning a lot. It's been a really really fun project.
Yeah, I've enjoyed following you on Instagram and seeing what you post every
Oh
other
yeah,
day or every
thanks.
day.
Yeah,
I
I've been
think
trying to watch a couple
it's fun.
movies a week with
Yeah.
it. So, well, thank
Well,
you.
I've actually done two. Technically, I've done for obscure animation. I've done two Ralph Bakshi films. When I first started the series, it was more of a edited video series, like a
Yeah.
review series, and I did the Lord of the Rings. Is Lord of the Rings,
Oh, okay.
which
Nice.
I'm kinder on than I feel like most people. It's not perfect, but I can appreciate kind of
Oh
the
yeah.
style and what he was going for and some of the choices made. And I don't think
Uh,
it's without merit.
No, I agree, and yeah, ambitious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really to take that on, I thought it was very very ambitious.
Yeah. My friends over at the Rotoscopers, they did not like it at all. But I think it's the lowest they ever scored anything. But I like it. So I had picked it for that first year when I was doing edited videos. I had picked it as one of the ones. So I haven't done a podcast on it, but I have done it as obscure animation.
Oh,
If that makes
nice. Okay,
yeah.
excellent.
So it's he has a very unique style, the rotoscoping,
Yep.
uh, and so it's going to be interesting to talk about. I'd heard about this movie Wizards, but I had never seen it, and it's I don't know if it's totally my jam, but I could definitely respect it as a piece of art.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt. I can't say that I just love the Ralph Bakshi style. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I think always in the back of my mind, and this probably isn't fair, but I'm thinking, Fritz the cat, like this is the guy who did Fritz the cat. Now, according to the font of all knowledge, also known as Wikipedia, is saying that this film is notable for being his first fantasy film.
Yeah,
So he made this just before the Lord of the Rings. When did Lord of the Rings come out? Do you remember the year on that, Rach? I mean, we can look it up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I feel
This
like
came out in '77.
it's right around there.
It seems to me like it was like 78 or 79.
Yeah, 78, 78.
Okay, so yeah, so it was just right after
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly, I think there's some stylistic things that really, particularly with the rotoscoping, I think really fall. You can tell that they're done by the same studio, and I guess some of the character designs too. But
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, so yeah, his first fantasy film with the Lord of the Rings just following, not too long um, after. I think also it's interesting, just as a historical thing, a part of this movie watching project. You know, the guy in charge of production at 20th Century Fox, his name was Alan Ladd Jr., and he's the one who greenlit the original Star Wars, and so he was a bit of a risk taker, which I think at different times at the studio, at Fox, it might not have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was interesting that again, same year that Star Wars came out, they also you know were willing to release another type of fantasy film, again very different,
Mm-hmm.
but still.
Well, yeah, the 1970s is such a weird experimental time for
Yep.
animation because, like you said, with something like Fritz the Cat, there was starting to be some like more adult animation,
Mm-hmm.
but then we also had things like Fantastic Planet. Was in
Oh yeah.
1973, and that's very kind of experimental and weird. I do you remember the White Mare one? I think that was actually 80 something, but
Yes, I
it
do.
definitely has that same feel and style.
It does. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Early '80s. Yeah, wasn't that?
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can even something like it's in 1980, I believe, or 81, but Secret of Nim we talked about
Yeah.
that certainly has some of that same style. So, because the other day, our friend Jen Johans, she said that she was asking what people think about the 1970s, and I was like, not my favorite, probably my least favorite decade of movies. She was like, oh, what? And I said, well, I mean, it's just not the greatest. I'm an animation girl. It's not the greatest era for animation, but I do think that it's kind of an interesting era for animation
Mm-hmm.
because there weren't very many Disney films at that time
Right.
coming out, and so everybody else, kind of the UPA ones we've talked about,
Yeah.
were sort of I think in the 80s. But I don't know, just that whole sort of pre-Renaissance Disney pre-Disney Renaissance era of animation is very interesting to look at.
Yeah, agreed. And
Mm-hmm.
just from like the first frame of this movie, I was like, what?
Yeah, it's a lot going on in this film, a lot, and it's only 80 minutes, but they pack a ton
Oh,
of
they pack a ton of
everything.
plot into this movie. Yeah, it's
Yes.
so.
Yes. So basically, it's in a post-apocalyptic story. The
Which itself is weird,
Yeah,
right?
it
Yeah.
is. It's weird. I mean, especially it seems like it must have been especially commentary on the times then. If you think about, Vietnam War,
Yeah.
Cold War, things like that were going on.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Yeah. If you think about another one, the Yellow Submarine, that would be another one
Right.
that kind of has that same sort of aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so it's a post-apocalyptic story. The humans have been turned into mutants, and there's fairies, elves, and dwarfs that have resurfaced because of the nuclear explosion. And there's this woman, Delia. She's celebrating 3,000 years of peace, and she has twin wizard children. I don't know if you can really call them boys. I don't know what they are.
I don't know what they are.
But it's Avatar, the kind and good wizard, and Black Wolf, the evil wizard. But one thing I thought was interesting is the design of both Avatar and Black Wolf.
they are so opposite of each other. It's very interesting, even though they're twins. I mean, you wouldn't even know that they were related.
No. And they almost look like they're from different movies.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Yeah, that's what I thought was interesting too with the character designs of so many of these characters. Yeah, that they don't look like they belong together. And again, maybe that was intentional because Avatar is short and he wears kind of like a classic wizard's robe and a wizard's pointed hat. He's got this beard, and you don't even. And often his eyes are covered by his hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he reminded me of an old Saturday morning cartoon I used to watch called David the Gnome. I don't know if you ever watched that.
No, but I was just gonna say, but he had like that Saturday morning kind of aesthetic about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the world of David the Gnome was voiced by Tom Bosley.
Oh, okay.
And it was a cute little
I bet it was adorable
show that I used to watch in the 80s. And it kind of reminded me his design and just, I don't know, everything about the character. And whereas Black Wolf was very like
it's like Skeletor or something.
Yes, it did. It reminded me of the Horned King in
the
Black Cauldron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
And you could feel them trying to tap into this energy in the Black Cauldron. And remember when we talked to Jim and he said that basically the fantasy had kind of dying down by then, by the time the Black Cauldron came out. Yeah. You can really see that because that was 1985, I think.
It was the Black Cauldron came out in 85.
85, yeah.
And this, was 77, which I think was maybe kind of like almost at the peak of the fantasy, type of era. And it was just like behind, the Black Cauldron.
And so you can really tell with like the character designs, with the backgrounds, with the kind of weird storytelling choices. That they were trying to kind of tap into this trend for
Yeah.
Black Cauldron,
Oh yeah.
but not successfully.
But yeah, not successfully.
Because
And maybe not as crass either with what's
yeah,
going on in this movie.
well, that's the thing with this movie is that it does kind of keep you guessing, and it it just keeps trying all these different things. Whereas there was nothing in this movie that like actively annoyed me or irritated me, like in Black Cauldron.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Especially the scene where they go into the world of the fairies, and there's all these like little tiny fairies. That really reminded me of Black Cauldron.
Of Black Cauldron, oh for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where there's the king, you know, the fairies.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Because in the Black Cauldron, I was so annoyed by all of that, and here it's like, oh, okay, there's like now that they're with the fairies.
yeah, I
You
mean that's
know.
one of the more palatable parts of Black Cauldron. But like, Taryn is just so annoying as a character throughout
Yeah.
that it's a struggle.
It's a struggle, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to design two characters that were just so different.
Yeah, I
I can't
agree.
think of another animated film that I don't know, they just look like they're not even in the same universe to me. As
Yeah.
those two brothers.
Yep.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think
And
so too.
And there was over on the Wikipedia, there was a quote from this one of the animation historians or whatever. It says the overall effect of the animation is akin to that of the great anime creators. One has to keep reminding oneself that Wizards predates Miyazaki's The Castle of Cagliostro, not the other way around. The backgrounds are especially lovely, even the simplest of them, and in general, the movie has a strong visuals despite occasional technical hurriedness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah,
that's true, and
I do too.
I think that Nausicaa and Cagliostro are two more that you could kind of put into this. Maybe even going as far up as Akira. I think you could put that, or Ghost in the Shell in the 80s. I think that there's a lot you can see influenced by this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly, Rachel, those backgrounds that I think that some of them, I looked online, I think some of them were attributed to an animator named Ian Miller, if I'm getting that
The
wrong.
gloomy backgrounds of Scorch.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That were so detailed.
Yeah.
And I mean, they looked like pencil sketches, but I thought they were wonderful. You know, I mean, just as far as their level of detail and this really kind of gloomy and foreboding environment that they were, you know, representing or portraying. Every one of those stood out to me. You know, when I was always happy when they would go to those, because some of the other ones, again, and I mean, it's not necessarily a criticism, but they just kind of looked like Saturday morning. You know what I mean? They just didn't necessarily have a lot of beauty or artistry or interest to them. But wow, when they did, they were something. You know?
There was another animator, Mike Plug, who did the Arcadian landscapes of Montegar. Towards the latter part of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were also very striking. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a big theme of this movie is about technology and how technology is used to enslave the masses, to control the masses, to manipulate. You have the Holocaust particularly brought up. You have Nazi propaganda brought up, particularly in the sorts of films that they watch and become kind of hypnotized by. Then it says the key to creating hysteria is fear. So what do you think about that, about how they executed those themes?
Well, I thought, again, the techniques they were using were interesting because they were actually, you know, using real film footage from Nazi propaganda films that they were integrating into the shots. And I think I thought that that technology is, whatever that they were using. I thought that was interesting as far as how did they how they did that, because they had kind of this grainy animation stuff around it, and then the
Mhm.
film footage.
Yeah, I
So
think it's kind of funny because we think back 1977, we're like, what technology? What did they have? It makes you think like, what does Ralph Bakshi think? I think he's still alive. Is he still alive or is
yeah,
he
he's
kind
still
of back?
alive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
like,
still
what
alive.
does he think now
I
of
know, right? When
cell
technology has
phones and
truly taken over, where back in the day it was like kind of, yeah, it felt like it was very nascent. I mean, just like just getting going, computers and all. And yeah,
yeah.
I thought that. But so I guess the combination of the filmmaking techniques were interesting to me, but not that they were high tech.
Hmm.
But yeah, so now to answer your question about the technology, yeah, I mean, to make technology is kind of like the villain.
Yeah.
Interesting idea, and maybe he was trying to be prophetic, or maybe he saw stuff that we didn't. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was probably. I mean, clearly he's talking about propaganda
Right?
as part of it. But you also see something like Doctor Strangelove, which would have been the decade earlier, kind of commenting on nuclear war and things like that. And obviously, that's also part of like technology
Yeah,
kind of in here as well. He also comments on religion. Says bits and pieces of religion. There's all around. You need God on your side in a war, and he says that's stupid. He says that it's only one victor, and that's him. And he points to God, and you see like in that scene, you see fairies that are being crucified,
yeah,
and so lots of things going on. I
yeah.
mean,
Lots of things, lots of imagery and things that get put in there, and
mhm,
a lot of kind of fast edits, quick edits, but you see it.
mhm. I think
Yeah,
what didn't work as well. I didn't mind any of that commentary. It sort of suits a sci-fi kind of story like this. It kind of reminds me a little bit of A World of Tomorrow. Don Hertzfeld.
yeah,
I bet you
yeah.
he's influenced by. How could he not be influenced by Bashki? But
Right.
I didn't love the rotoscoped soldiers scenes
Yeah, those
with the
those went on
red
and
and the.
on. I was wondering what movie it was he had to use, like some you know
Uh huh.
like Ivanhoe from 1950 or something, like, or so, the way the kind of the old fashioned, you can tell there's like the headgear and the weapons that they had, and however they were with the rotoscoping of all those horses and soldiers and stuff. Those went on and on. I thought I kind of liked some of the colored backgrounds that he'd use on them, because I
Hmm.
thought like different shades of blue and different things, and there was a lot of texture to it, but it was uninteresting. The rotoscoping stuff was pretty
Hmm.
uninteresting.
Yeah, and it was just kind of glaring. I don't know. It just got kind
Yeah,
of. I
it
got
almost
tired of
seemed
it.
out of place.
Hmm. What do you think of Eleanor as a character? She obviously has this very sexy outfit.
What I was gonna say.
And I don't know if that's also part of his sort of commentary or if he just likes that or if there
Well,
was
I
any
just
reason for it.
I I didn't know if there was any reason for it. I mean, I guess the king question, or Avatar questions her fidelity, right,
Mhm.
to him, but and I think, well, okay, yeah, when she's dressed like that, I guess you would, but I mean, that's kind of mean to say, but she does kind of
Mhm.
look. It makes her look, I think, very promiscuous, but it also just made me just think of it. This is Ralph Bashki. This is the guy who did Fritz the Cat. So I guess in a way that informed her character. Personally, I found it unnecessary.
Yeah, I did too because it's never really commented on. It's never. I mean, I guess in a way you could say that it's refreshing to have it not be commented on and just have whatever she likes to dress that way. That's whatever's. But I don't know. It felt a little distracting, if I'm honest.
Well,
And
yeah, I thought so too, Rich. And again, not having seen Fritz the Cat or some of these other
mhm,
things, my pre-made judgment, which I can't say that I'm necessarily proud of
Mhm.
because I don't feel like it's that backed. It's not that informed, but it just seemed to be there just to be provocative. But
Well, and
kind of what's the
especially
point?
when she's judged, as you said, for being unfaithful to Avatar, then Weehawk, the Weehawk character, he is very judgmental of her.
Yeah,
And he ends up smashing the projector. So he was almost a more sort of angry character than Avatar.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah. We also get a scene where so Avatar says that his mission is to prevent another Holocaust, and he's a peaceful person. He ends up getting struck by an arrow at one point, but he doesn't fight back. He refuses to fight back. But then Eleanor removes the arrow from Avatar, and he seems to be okay. Avatar says, "Is this how you repay me?" And so I don't know. It did feel a little random at times with the story.
Yeah.
There's the elf general, the
Yes.
and then Black Wolf attacks, and he's very bloodthirsty, angry, and it seems to be people are almost hypnotized by this Nazi propaganda.
Oh yeah, that's what they get hypnotized, and I'll try not to keep it too let's try to stay as
Hmm.
apolitical as possible, Rachel. But it's interesting to see how that is a real deal. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we've experienced some of that in our own country and
Yep.
today,
Hmm.
and that it's that it's a real thing.
Well, I think the lust for power and control never goes away.
Yeah,
That's always going to be. They're always going to want to be people that want power.
that want power and that are willing to manipulate people to
Hmm.
you know to get it.
Yeah, I remember. Shoot, what's his, Elder in our church? Elder Maxwell talking about George Washington and him saying that no man had ever been given ultimate power and used it so gently
Mm-hmm.
before. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really true.
That's a nice way to put it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And unfortunately, like most men and women would have a hard time. It's. I've just been watching The Lord of the Rings, and you look at the way that uh, Boromir and Faramir and so all these characters were tempted by the
Yeah.
ring. And they have all these good things that they want to do with the ring, but they're just not strong enough
Mm-hmm.
for it. It takes a truly humble character like Frodo and then Samwise to be able to, and even they can barely do it in
Even
the end.
they can barely do it
Hmm.
themselves. Yeah.
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 So I think that's true. And like I said, the key to creating hysteria is fear, and
Yeah.
that's something that we've definitely seen in these
Yep.
last decade. So also, yeah, using technology, and we've certainly seen that as well when you're talking about Facebook and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
propaganda. Then we have this robot that there's two of them. The robots, I forgot their names. I forgot to write them down.
Yeah.
What are their names?
What are their names? They're interesting. I think
Sean. No,
Sean.
that. See, is that right? Where's the robots?
Is it
Yeah.
Necron 99?
Yes, Necro 99.
And what's the name of the other one?
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't. I don't know the other one's name. What's wrong with me? But yeah, Necro 99 is the main one. It's the one there with the most time. But Sean, who's
Is it Peace?
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same voice actor. That's why
Yeah,
I
it's
was
the same.
confused.
It's the same voice actor. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a pretty violent character. These
Oh,
robots pretty
yeah.
violent.
They're shooting everybody.
Yeah, which was kind of shocking.
Yeah.
And then we have Mark Hamill in this as Sean, the King of the Mountain Fairies and Captain of the Guards. This was his film debut, and it was he did it around the same time that he was working on Star Wars.
Oh, Star Wars, yeah, because
Mhm.
again, released the same year.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's kind of fun. He's always been. I guess I didn't realize that he. For some reason, I thought, oh, he started doing the voice work later after he had the accident, the car accident. But I guess that's not the case. I guess he was doing voice work from very
it's
young.
yeah, that is. I thought the same thing. I really I didn't know.
Mhm.
To me it seems like it was the Joker, in the
Mhm.
Batman animated series,
Yeah.
where that was like, oh, that's his first gig, but no,
Mhm.
it started back in here in 1977.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. And they have this in this city of Scorch. They are just like continuously watching this propaganda, and like I said, it sort of has this hypnotic effect over them. And then Eleanor climbs into the tank and drives off, and we get this big battle that happens. That's we get a lot of the rotoscoping and everything. So it's kind of there. It is a little bit. It's just a little too much. I think the rotoscoping, like I said, it's a lot going on, and you get kind of motion sickness a little bit. I think.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
And Black Wolf attacks, and you have this scene with Avatar challenging his brother, and that's when Weehawk destroys the projector, and you find out that he's so mad at Eleanor, but you find out that that she was getting hypnotized by this projector, by Black Wolf,
Yeah.
had trapped her mind. So
It's a really interesting, that kind of that final showdown between
mhm.
Avatar and I keep wanting to call him Black Hawk, but it's
Yeah,
Black Wolf.
Black
I know.
Wolf. Yeah.
It's Black Wolf.
I mean,
But
it really was because he just shoots his brother, and you would never see something like that now in even an adult animated film. I don't think you
no.
would ever see somebody just flat out shoot someone like that.
Yeah, it was pretty jarring, but it was also just like he's got to take him out, right? That's
Mhm.
probably the only way. They're not going to be able to reconcile. I thought it was a very interesting. I mean, it reminded me of something just because of the gun, but it reminded me of a Western, but
Mhm.
also this real battle between good and evil.
Mhm.
And the evil is, as you said, is the combination of the brainwashing, but also the kind of this concept of the technology, right? That they're letting that like takes away human agency,
Yeah, and
right?
I mean, Black Wolf has killed literally millions of people by the time in this.
Yeah,
And so this is not Thanos here. There's no chance of redemption. There's no
yeah,
and and so there's no like tragic backstory or anything like that. It's just he is evil, and and he needs to be shot.
yeah.
It's pretty intense.
It is. It's intense, and again, that particular scene too uses those interesting backgrounds. They're talking about the really
Uh-huh.
detailed kind of backgrounds, and Avatar's like on this kind of on this pedestal type thing. And
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah.
it's dramatic.
Mhm. Plus, if you think that they're living in a post-apocalyptic world where these mutants and that so many people have died, so many creatures
Yeah,
have died because of selfish choices of others. So even more reason to get rid of this megalomaniac, the
yeah.
Black Wolf. And he even taunts him there. He's not like there's
Oh,
not a moment where they have like a moment between
like a
brothers. He's
brother
just
moment. No, he's just being a jerk.
yeah. I mean, he says, "I'm glad you changed your last name, you sob." I was like,
Yeah,
oh, that's harsh.
horrible.
But yeah, like I said, I can't think of another animated film where somebody just straight up shoots someone in the stomach like that.
Yeah, yeah,
But I guess I mean earlier you have Avatar getting shot with an arrow through
yeah.
his side.
Avatar gets injured, and
Hmm.
yeah,
So, and then we have the mutants get defeated, and then that's kind of our ending of the story. Is Avatar and Eleanor gets her brain back.
yeah, and
Her
they
brain back.
reconcile.
Hmm. And it like I wrote down, this film is an allegorical comment on the moral ambiguity of technology and the potentially destructive powers of propaganda. So I think
Yep.
that what they're trying to say is that technology gives us this sort of power to connect with people, but that it also gives us this power to ruin people. It's like this moral. It's not a definite good or bad. It's just kind of this tool that can be used for good or evil,
Yeah.
which makes it dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I make my living off technology. Obviously, I love technology, but I can still appreciate that message. Especially, it's interesting from, like I said, 1977. Mhm.
Right.
We talked about some of it, but I do feel like even in live action, there were a lot of kind of films like this with things that Kubrick made or UHF or not UHF. What is it? The one with George UHF is the
That's the Weird Al
Weird Al
Yankovic.
one. What's the one that George Lucas did?
Oh, THX 1138.
THX. Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
like THX and I don't know, just a lot of sort of weird sci-fi movies.
Yeah. Logan's Run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of thought, I guess, back then, probably because of the war with
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam and everything and the Cold War. It would kind of make you think along those lines. But yeah, that's the movie. It was a very interesting watch.
It really was. It was
Mhm.
just, but again, as you said, like, I never really got bored. I mean, and not that that's necessarily like the ultimate indicator, but it was so kind of out there that I just was
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
paying attention. It was just
Mhm.
the opposite of the Black Cauldron for
Yeah.
me.
Right. Yes, and much better characters.
Yeah.
So if you have seen Wizards, if you're listening, if you've seen Wizards and you have something to say, please let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments or on Twitter. And if you have any suggestions of obscure movies that you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And Stanford, how can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark. I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com. And then, as Rachel was mentioning, I am documenting this 20th Century Fox deep dive on an Instagram account. It's at movies PAP, as in past and present.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you also definitely check it out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Also, if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and our merch store, which has hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. So definitely want to check that out. We sure appreciate that support. And yeah, thanks so much. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.